The idea that Germany might have seemed to many people invincible in the First World War may indeed appear bizarre. After all, the final verdict of history was clear. The First World War ended with a catastrophic failure of German politics and strategy, and nothing can or should be allowed to detract from this truth. At the same time, however, perhaps our own post hoc assessment is influenced by our knowledge of the final outcome. The idea that Germany was simply doomed from the beginning to lose the First World War is itself unhistorical, and ignores the fact that the outcome of the war was for a long time very much on a knife edge. Indeed, this is one of the central arguments of the present book, which will not offer speculative approaches or deal in terms of what-ifs, like General Max Hoffmann's War of Missed Opportunities. It aims rather to show that the outcome of the war was for a long period very widely considered to be open, and that bearing this fact in mind is indispensable to understanding the increasing radicalization of the war, the insuperable obstacles in the way of a compromise peace, the harshness of the victors, and the stubborn unwillingness of the vanquished to accept the result. A whole series of further questions, all very important for understanding the war, are connected to this one, such as the links between military operations, overall strategy, and Germany's war aims proposals for a compromise peace. Were Germany's war aims the insuperable obstacle preventing an earlier ending of the war? What did German society want to gain politically from the war? There can be no simple answers to these questions, only answers that take into account the often competing and discordant decision-making centers of Imperial Germany, and the changing military and political circumstances of 4.5 years of warfare. Care and detail are necessary to show ruptures, developments, and continuities in the German answers to the question as to what they were fighting for. For its analysis of German society, the present volume has drawn on Hans Ulrich Wehler's model of Imperial Germany as a polycratic chaos, a collection of competing power centers, all involved in the decision-making process. The Emperor and his court, the Reich Chancellor and the diplomats, the Reichstag as a mirror of the parties and the German public, the military leadership, especially the Oberste Heeresleitung, OHL, Supreme Army Command, and the heads of the Navy. Of course, as military events were central to the question of how and why the German Empire lost the First World War, the present volume is also concerned with battles and their consequences, the arguments about important strategic decisions, and their supporters and opponents. It seeks to show how the various assessments of military capabilities by the power centers influenced political objectives, and how strategy was affected by the political and military structures of the German Empire and the personal peculiarities of key individuals. Any book that focuses on only one belligerent power can only offer a partial perspective on what were European and global events, and there is no denying that virtually every war is fundamentally a highly interactive event, which asks for an international or transnational approach in the style of the histories of the First World War by Hugh Strachan, David Stevenson, Jay Winter, Adam Tooze, or Jorn Leonard. Yet perhaps a national perspective too offers insights which may contribute to an understanding of global events. It was, after all, the perspective of those who were taking the decisions at the time, and must be of some relevance to the question of how and why they made them. Not, of course, that analyzing how decisions were made means automatically approving them or exonerating their authors. Moreover, limiting the subject to Imperial Germany permits a more thoroughly detailed analysis of its war aims. It is perhaps impossible to define something as amorphous as the political will of the German society of the First World War. Given that in 1914, Germany had about 65 million inhabitants, of whom over